You're live.
We're live. Okay, we are reconvening again this morning, and we are taking up school bus driver licensing, I believe. And we have some folks in the room. Who would like to go first? Are you Brent?
Yes.
Okay, why don't you take a seat over here?
Here, over here, Brent.
And tell us what's on your mind this morning.
Well, I'm Brett Schaefer. Seymour Chenoweth is the owner.
Okay.
Behind you, you have Steve Landon, who's a manager, one of our managers, and Robert Chase, who is a certified trainer.
Are you folks from a bus company or? What's the name of it?
Butler Bus Service.
Butler. Where, what part of the state?
Pretty much the 91 corridor.
Okay.
Yeah, 91 corridor, and then we have some operations in Hampshire, 91 corridor. Orleans, St. Johnsbury,
Okay.
Haverhill, Hartford.
How many bus people are there? Because I see Mountain Transit, I guess, in Ireland.
There's probably 4 main companies in the state of
How
Vermont.
many buses do you have?
We operate about 300.
Oh my God.
That's Vermont and New Hampshire, so.
Wow, that's a
On both
lot.
sides.
That's a lot to get a driver to come in every day.
It's a lot to get a driver in, and that's why we're here. It's.
I just want to get out of the topic, but every time I see a bus, I say, what happens if that person doesn't show up? You gotta have somebody back up to take that spot because those kids gotta get to school. And
Yeah, it's not like, your delivery guy,
No, it's gotta move.
If the case of Coke doesn't show up for,
No,
a day or two, it is what it is.
It's always amazing when I see
Bus
somebody
doesn't show up,
every morning, you got
you'll
like
hear about it.
100 drivers and if 5 don't show up, what do? You drive bus? Okay, I got carried away a little bit, but I just want to get a little background on what's going on.
Well,
Yes.
but basically, we're trying to figure out a way to speed up the licensing procedure. It takes, if you were to start your test right now to become a driver, it would probably take 3 to 4 months before you got licensed. There's a severe shortage of drivers.
What is the process now to get a license?
It's all in your pamphlet there.
I know it's quite a bit to read.
Break it
I'll
down
take that home.
Well,
Break it down to us.
Yeah,
First you use your pre-employment drug test.
Page 2.
Yeah. Then your background check, which is now taking up to 10 weeks to get back. We're waiting, we're actually, I think, on week 12 of a newbie that's waiting to get licensed right now at the Orleans outlet.
what's a background check? Is that consent, the drug testing? and everything
No,
else?
that's
No?
legal, any misdemeanors, felonies or
Okay.
something that might be, make it not good to have them as a driver,
Okay,
okay?
Anybody who works with kids, basically.
okay.
And the sheriff's office only offers that once a month. So if you catch it a couple days after they offered it, that's another month added on to that. The next step is you have to attend an 8-hour clinic before you can get even a permit. After that, your DOT physical. And then comes the testing, and the testing is only offered in some parts of the state, not conveniently located for many. And afterwards, to take the actual skills test, we've had drivers that have had to go to Rutland to get their skills test done. We need more examiners, testers. We need the DMV to open up their offices a little bit more. And I know there's a shortage of people. I mean, we understand that, but there's also severe shortage of bus drivers. We have drivers that are driving 2 routes because we're short sometimes. Now, this is a part-time job for most of us, and most of us do it for the love of the kids. And we have doctor's appointments and so forth. So we have no spare drivers. And and this all comes back to getting them licensed and the time that it takes to do it. if you have time, you can, as you kind of looked through it earlier, you have to be a mechanic, you know, in order to be able to do what we call the pre-trip. And when the examiners and the testers, when we do this, they don't allow us to miss one. Depending on the examiner, they might. And so if you miss one, boom, you're done. You have to start all over. You have to wait another month or 2 weeks, whatever, you know, wherever the opportunity is to retake it. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to see what can be done to help expedite the time. There's a few other things that fall in, and I'll pass on that a little bit in a minute. But again, that's our biggest issue, is getting the drivers through the process quicker. I mean, when we talk to someone about, you know, getting licensed, and they find out it's going to take 3 or 4 months, they walk away. They just don't want to deal with it.
They don't pay it during.
Pardon me?
Do they get paid during that time?
No. So, again, most of us do it for the love of the kids. You know, because it's a
Would you like to grab a chair excited over there?
Yeah, I just wanted to.
So sit right there.
There you go. Thank you. I just want to kind of expand on what he said there. You know, obviously we're in a very big driver shortage, industry wide. I mean, all transportation. You know, the process to get your license is very convoluted now with the feds coming in and adding clearinghouse and adding ELDT. We now have to do entry-level driver training on top of the training that we already did. So, you know, the drivers that are coming through the door, when we start explaining to them, and we do pay for training, but normally we do it after they're done and they're driving, because what we found is you start paying somebody, you're training them, and then they either get their license or whatever and they leave, or they don't complete it, but you know, we're paying them. So we found that it's what we do is we'll pay them after they get their license, they start working for us, we'll pay them for that. But again, the process to get a license, if somebody comes through the door and needing a job, they need to be paid. They need money. And with this process, the way that it takes, you know, the 3 to 4 months sometimes to get somebody licensed, no one's going to train and do that to drive a school bus when they're not getting paid for 3 or 4 months. So it's, you know, we need to bring that in somehow to enable them to get licensed quicker and you know, get them on the road and get that process a little more fluid.
No one does this for a full-time position, right? They have to understand it's only
Correct.
9 months a year.
Correct.
And part-time. And is there a general average salary throughout the state for bus drivers, or they vary from?
So there was a survey that was done by Patrick, and I always butcher his last name, Manamon, who was in charge of the transfer school bus division for the state. And the average salary ranges from 18 to 23 an hour. And then what we go by is standard hours. So every driver gets 4 hours a day. So you get 2 in the morning, 2 in the afternoon for doing that route, which is what we call standard hours.
Okay, so that's automatic. They get the 4 hours.
Yeah, that's the minimum they get.
And then you folks negotiate with the school district for a fee, right?
For contracts.
For contracts, that's what I meant.
Yep.
You go to a school, they say it's going to cost you $10,000 or whatever it is, and negotiate the price for that.
Correct.
So maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, but what can we do to help?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
I got a gentleman right behind you. You said you were a trainer? Yes, sir. So do you have some thoughts on exactly what the chair had asked as far as a trainer's perspective about ways that you can shorten this time length? Or
I train for both Vermont and New Hampshire. Vermont has an 8-hour clinic that we have to do every year. We renew our license. I was talking with Emo the other day, he's been doing this for 30 years, he has to take the same 4-hour class that a brand new person takes. Every 4 years.
Every 4 years.
New Hampshire, you have to do 8 hours of continuing education every year, but we do that in-house at the safety meeting. So I go over the same topics that we go over every 4 years in Vermont, but I do it monthly. And at the end of the year, I send it to the state, and that individual gets to go renew their license to drive in New Hampshire. It speeds up the process tremendously, because right now there's 3 clinics in the month of March, 3 clinics in the month of April in the state of Vermont. Swanton, Derby, and then we have one in White River on the 1st of April. So like this gentleman was saying, we might have to send the driver 2.5 hours to go to an 8-hour clinic that he's already gone to 4 or 5 times before. And they get tired of going to the same thing, listening to the same thing over and over again. And then once we get into the clinic, they go to sign up for their permit, and it's 4 or 5 weeks before they can even get to take a written test, because they only test on the Thursday of each month, every Thursday, but it's first come, first serve. We're competing against dump truck drivers, tractor trailer drivers, garbage truck drivers, everybody else to get these slots. And then after that, again, it's another month before I can get them in to drive. And then some of those places, you feel like he was saying, you get one thing wrong and you start all over again. But I could get a test 10 days from now. You're in Rutland today, I mean, you test me and fail me because I missed something. This gentleman's in Rutland 10 days from now, and I go to see him, and he tells me something totally different because we're not all on the same page. And those are the biggest issues as trainers that we have, is just the timetable, because people get disinterested and then they get frustrated because we're not on the same page and we can't give them the same answers.
What jurisdiction are these under? Is it agency of AOT, or is it under DMV? Who?
Or is it federal?
Well, there's a combination of, I mean,
This
obviously,
list right here, where do these come? Who has?
I would believe DMV on that. I believe so, correct?
Well, there's things like the drug test, that's not a DMV thing.
No,
That's a
not
federal,
saying
correct.
who-
Background check is a school thing.
But I just wonder who coordinates it all, tries to get it. That's what I hear, they're trying to get it coordinated. Yes.
So there's a bill in the House, H108. I don't know, it doesn't look like they took any action on it, but it proposes to expand, have the DMV expand. You make suitable locations throughout
We should have been here.
throughout the state available for prospective commercial motor vehicle operators to practice prior to taking a skills test. So I don't know if that's moving in the T-bill or not, but it's Dennis Levanti has been working on this.
I've been driving 27 years, and when I got licensed, it took me 3 weeks. That simple. And back then, my wife, who's been driving 40 plus years.
Who's a better driver?
with me,
Who's a better driver?
She would say she was.
You are on camera.
She would say she is. And at that time, she was one of only 3 certified instructors in the state.
Wow.
And she used to have to go all over to put on the clinic.
Wow.
And also, her father started the company. He told her to get in that bus and go pick people up. And that's what it boiled down to. There was no licensing at that point. She got on the bus and away she went with her little kids. So, I mean, it's snowballed into this time frame.
Clinics are repetitive. With the LDT training we're doing now, that takes, you have to do 2 books that are 30 chapters of these just to go take your permit, plus an 8-hour clinic. You're learning the same information in 2 spots. So, I mean, it's good and repetitive to teach these courses.
And the ELDT is the federal side of that, and the 8-hour clinic is the New York State side of that, of what we're doing.
I guess that's really where I'm at, is that are we gonna be trying to expedite the process and then just bump up against the federal guidelines as far as what they have to say? And can we make it faster with, because we know we're not gonna change the Fed's mind. So are we gonna be able to come up with a solution to shorten this timeline? Or are we gonna be, no pun intended, spinning our wheels.
As far as I know, there is no time frame for the feds. I can give you the books and you can go home and read them all tonight, and take the tests. And then I turn them into emo who enters them in, and you can go take your test the next day. So it's not like you have to take 8 weeks to take these 2 books. It can be done overnight if you're that good of a reader and you can pass your test.
And the staff is available to
Correct.
test it.
So, yeah, so, as far as the ELDT goes, yeah, that is basically a function of how quick you can learn. And I mean, I've had people go through it in 3 or 4 days. You can go online, there's an electronic course, you can take the electronic course, and in an afternoon, you can pass the ELDT part of it. It's when we come to the state part of this that I don't think that you're going to back up against that. Again, we just, looking at timing of scheduling of appointments, consistency of examiners at testing sites, as well as the 8-hour clinic, and trying to get more clinic instructors and people to teach that 8-hour course, the 8-hour clinic that we need to do.
And going back to what you said, sir, as far as between New Hampshire and Vermont, New Hampshire is online and Vermont a classroom setting.
No, they're both classroom settings.
Okay.
New Hampshire, I had to take a 34-hour course to teach New Hampshire drivers how to drive. Now I sign off on everything. I don't have to send them out to see a separate instructor. I can do it all right there, and then take them down to the New Hampshire DMV to get their license once they get their permit and do their skills test. Where Vermont, we have to send them out of the house to do an 8-hour clinic and then bring them back and then start their training.
Should I? You can't be here.
In the clinic, as they
Yeah.
said, it's very repetitive. Yeah, I've sat through it 6 times. I could teach the course probably. It's just.
And that's what, a lot of times, that's what takes, we have a driver up in Orleans that, has just, he's, needs his clinic by May, and he's basically decided, you know what, I'm not going to that again. I'm not doing this. I'm retired. I can't do it. So, for us, I mean, I've been driving for 32 years, had my license in Vermont, CDL for 32 years. And every 4 years, I got to go to the same clinic and the same process. And sometimes I've got to drive all the way to Burlington to go do it. So, again, it's.
I just want to ask a question that he's responded to. Could that be as easily online that every 4 years? Is there anything that you couldn't have online that you versus going to a classroom?
That'd be great. Yeah. I
You
mean,
could even narrow it down to 4 hours because.
for renewals.
For renewals.
The whole purpose of the class is to prep you to take your 20-question test or 50-question test you have to take. I mean, it's pretty much, when I first started, they read you the book. It's like your driver's ed manual. They read that to you for 8 hours. What it pretty much consisted of when I started 13 years ago.
You take a road test too?
Yep.
Road test. With a bus.
For renew.
Yeah, only for new.
For new drivers.
New drivers.
Renewal, you have to do a clinic and then go take the test.
But I'm one of the few that does not have an air brake endorsement because we didn't have air brake buses back then. And I took the written test, passed it, but we didn't have a bus when we finally did. I would have had to go through the whole pre-trip process, the driving part of it, just for the air brake endorsement.
Wow.
That's not necessary.
Waste of time.
I just had several questions on these things. The sheriff that's not the only place you can do fingerprints. Like, there are other options, are there not?
I'm
Get
sorry?
There are other options other than the sheriff's office. Like, some sheriff office might
I
be
don't
open
believe
once
so.
a month, but
Where do we?
I had mine done at the Hartford Police Station. When I did mine for Hartford.
then they only do fingerprints once a month.
You have to come make an appointment.
Yeah. I think there might be, because I dealt with this with childcare centers too, trying to, it's a problem with other places as well. And so the 8-hour school bus clinic that we're just talking about, that done by DMV. That's DMV staff that does that clinic. This number 5, the physical, maybe I missed what that was. DOT physical, and what is that?
Every 2 years, you have to go see a doctor and have a complete physical to make sure you're worthy being able to drive a bus, you know, how many medical conditions that will cause you to have a stroke or a heart attack while you're driving down the road.
Okay.
Every year if you have high blood pressure.
Yes.
And some people only get 6 months,
Yeah.
there are 6 months, DOT physicals, correct?
Based on the doctors.
Based on the doctor's recommendation, correct? And there's only certain doctors you can go to, so you just can't go to your local physician and do it. There are doctors or facilities that are registered with the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, are the only places you can go and have that done.
And then, see the endorsement, no, those are DMV or those are federal requirements, like passenger
The
air.
endorsements are federal,
That's all federal.
so
Then the skill test is both the written test and the skills test is done with DMV.
What you have to do for your skills test is the next 4 pages of your handout.
Right, that's what happened. And that's what we heard anecdotally on the committee about a principal that was like, gee, I'll help out, I'll ride the school bus. And then they tried to take the test and got to this. And it's like, I don't know anything about air brakes. I just thought I had to try the bus. And then all these things that you needed to do, which they thought was a little excessive.
Yeah, principal of Newark.
And then
the Newark principal,
right. And then,
who drives for us,
now he got his license.
He did get his license, correct.
I think he said he took him 4 times or something like that.
It took him a while, but he finally did get it, yes.
We heard about on just general CDL problems that there's a certified training. Like if you had your own training center, that there was a no process to get that. Is that something you already do, or is that helpful at all? Do you know what I'm talking about? Yeah, there was when the new federal CDL regulations came out, there was a process where you could become a certified CDL training center. And I don't know if there's a way to do that, like if your business would do that.
Yeah, that was with ELDT, for the entry-level driver training program. So you could become a training center. And there are training, like I said before, there are training centers that you can go online and do the ELDT program and get that done electronically. We do it in-house.
So you're like
Correct.
certified to do that.
We're certified to enter it in there and to teach it, correct? He's certified to teach the ELDT, and I have several other trainers that do that teach the ELDT program. And then as the administrator of it, I have to certify that he did the training.
And that EDLT program, you need to have that required before you can go to the next.
Oh, yes, because if you go to take your written test, they look it up. You have to have that done first. They look it up in the DMV to see that you've completed the ELDT program, correct?
That's almost $7,000 if you go to a truck driving school, just to take that course.
And that just gets you to the point where you can take the test.
Correct.
It's like a driver's ed course.
One of our local municipalities just hired 2 new people, and then it's costing them over $5,000 per person to get their CDL license.
CDL.
There's no way around that as far as on the federal, you have to have that federally.
Correct. So I think ultimately what it boils down to is, we need to revamp, get more instructors for the 8-hour clinic, revamp kind of that clinic and renewals so that we're not frustrating the current drivers who are there. Like you said, for us to sit through the same 8-hour clinic every 4 years is kind of insane. Even doing a 4-hour, online thing where you can do it. I could probably take the 20-question test. I've taken it so many times. I could probably take it with my eyes closed, but I have to go there. So, I think the first thing is to get that changed, get that process changed. And then also, obviously we want more inspectors so that we can have more testing dates. That would speed the process up. Having more inspectors within the DMV to, have more time slots and more schedules for CDL licensing, to move that forward. And then consistency with the inspectors too, because, sometimes you can go to Burlington and you go to Rutland and there's two different things, and they're saying two different things. But, I think more inspectors and
Do you
obviously
pay-
that's
do you
gonna
pay-
cost.
Do you have to pay for when you go to those tests?
Yes,
Yes.
What's it cost?
each time.
I don't know the exact, it's 20 or,
$25 for a clinic, and it's $26 for each one of your endorsements, I believe, and when you get your license, it's $180.
But so the 4-hour course you have to take,
the 8-hour course.
8 hours.
8 hours, how
Every
much
course,
is that?
$45.
45.
We'd like to turn it into 4.
Which the instructor gets, that doesn't go to the state, that goes right to the instructor's pocket.
Also, it's not an employee of the state?
No.
Okay.
When you say inspector, that's the person giving that class.
No, that's the person that has test at the DMV, correct, yeah. And that's what it
Decides
takes,
if you pass or not.
correct, and that's a lot of times it takes so much time, is that there aren't a lot of inspectors. And, we're competing with, the Casellas and the trucking companies, everybody, for those CDL drivers and those testing spots.
They do three time slots a day, usually 2 days a week, because they're also the drivers to get your 16-year-old driver's license.
Correct.
And at all AOT locations.
Springfield tests every Tuesday and Thursday. Rutland is on Wednesdays and Fridays, I believe, because sometimes they have to share instructors.
Well, St. John's very closed for quite a while, and I don't know if they're back testing or not down there, but
Once a month.
that's what, once a month down there. And that caused us a lot of issues, because we had to go to Rutland. I did, but, some of the drivers did.
Or in Montpelier, did they do it in Montpelier?
Do it in Berlin.
Well, if you can get in.
Yeah.
Now, does Mountain Transit share the same concerns, I wonder, that you folks do, or
Oh, absolutely.
I'm just trying to figure it
So
out.
this, and then some of the only thing that's school bus related would be like the fingerprints in the background check. Well, the drug test is federal for all CDLs, so it's just maybe 2 or 3. That's the only difference between
Correct.
school buses.
Yeah.
All the Casella and everybody, GMT, everybody has to deal with the rest of this stuff.
Except the 8-hour clinic. Okay,
That's a school bus.
that's school bus related,
Right,
Now,
that's why it's good.
When,
specific.
Premier Bus Company, when they have some bus routes, do they? Premier Bus?
Premier doesn't, no, they do coach,
Or they just?
they do tripper service, Premier does tripper service, they don't do school buses. Memorial Valley Transit does both coach, tripper service,
Okay.
as well as school bus.
Okay.
I think that's the only coach company that I know of that does both. Um,
Okay.
yeah.
Do they have school buses or they have regular?
Memorial
buses?
Valley does,
They have
correct,
school buses.
yeah.
Yeah,
Can I ask Michelle?
sure, go ahead.
Do you know who at DMV does, that would be in charge of this? Like who?
I would have to find out from the commissioner, I'm afraid I don't know.
I thought you knew everything.
I know a lot across this much.
What we'll have to do is schedule some of the DMV to come in. I think she made this morning, or they, so we'll have to schedule that and see what their reaction is, what we can do to help.
Yeah, at least at the very least, ask them to watch today.
Yeah, do that.
To get them right.
With some comments of how we can, because it is I'm sure a critical thing, because, like I said, you gotta get kids to school, and I don't know how you do it, if you don't have the help. Plus it's not a full-time job, so you're not gonna get somebody to apply for a full-time position, because it's not, it's part-time. I see in our area, I see most of them are women, they're driving because they're trying to break up the day. Sole provider at home on that case, because you're not getting a full, it's not a 40-hour week, so. Yeah, it's gotta be tough to try to get folks to come aboard, because.
Historically, when there were a lot of small farms, we had a lot of farmers.
Yeah.
Either before or after chores, and in the morning, and the same in the afternoon, and if you little extra income. We don't have little small farms in.
Oh, that's right.
The only other thing I'd like to, and this might be DMV rather, is what we have to go through when there's a violation of our stoplights. The state
When a
police.
car drives around the bus. You mean when a car goes around the bus, when you have your lights
We have
on?
our flashing lights on.
Yeah, we talked about that.
The local sheriff and the state police will not pursue the violators in free fashion. They want us to know the make and model of the car, the color of the car, the license number, who was driving it, while we're trying to keep the kids safe.
Right, yeah.
My take is, we can get, most of the time, we can get the license number, ticket the car. Whoever was driving it is probably gonna get called forward. I mean, if the owner of the car gets a summons in the mail, he's probably gonna find out who was driving his car when he did that.
Right.
Is it fair? I don't know. But this happens so often, I mean, weekly.
Yeah, I was gonna ask if it's gotten, at one point, a couple of years ago, we heard that it was getting worse.
Well, it hasn't gotten any better.
Why doesn't a bar go right across the road on the other side of the road? What?
That's the ones that drive around it.
No, but there's nothing on that side of the road that.
But the kids,
It's not just
when
that
those flashing
side.
lights are on,
They pass on the door side too.
when those flashing lights are on, the bar's out, the children know it's supposed to be safe to travel, whether it's across the road, off the road. In their mind, it's safe to go.
Right.
And then you got the guy that comes right on around you because he's impatient, didn't see it, whatever excuse he comes up with.
Yeah.
It's really, really frustrating.
In the, it seems like, I don't know if this is a new part of the training, but it looks like the school buses are doing similar to what you see troopers do, where they kind of have an angle and they kind of take up part of that. That's just individual.
Stop right in the middle of your lane.
Yeah,
Some bus drivers
They're
just
just
do
doing
it
it on their own.
on their
I
own.
think they're doing it their own.
Yeah, they actually block it almost.
They kind of block half of that other lane, so it makes it more obvious. But
It's easier to get away with on a one-lane road.
The problem with that is if you, obviously, you're not supposed to be there, and if you get in an accident or whatever, you're at fault, whether your red light's brought or not, so.
if it's at an angle, the stop sign is.
I wouldn't want my drivers doing that, correct, yeah, unfortunately. And if they're at an angle, the stop sign is over here, so.
So that is just something that's being trained, that's just something that's not.
Yeah, I mean, both the federal regulations and state of Vermont regulations is you stop in the middle of the lane, in your lane. You don't pull over to the side, you stop right in the middle of the lane.
Yeah, we've heard that problem before, the driver trying to be the reporter of the crime as well as dealing with it.
It actually happens more at the schools.
Oh, in the parking lot, you mean?
When they're, they drop their kids off behind your bus and they gotta get out, they go right around. And they go around the unloading side of the bus.
Yeah, that's bad.
We've been fortunate at Lake Region High School, we have an officer on duty and we had this happen. And he happened to be getting out of his car and of course, we lay on the horn. He looked up and he watched this driver come around. He just pulled him right over.
Yeah.
But that doesn't happen often.
Right.
They go and they investigate that, well, this guy, he didn't have a record, he was okay, it was his first time. It was the first time somebody got killed.
Yeah.
We don't need that.
Well, let's do moving motor vehicle over here and answer some of these questions and see what we can do. We're glad to keep it going.
There's a school bus bill in the House.
Yeah.
As a top.
Because Dennis Labonte, who's a House member, actually is a bus driver. Now, we took some testimony because some of the things that he was proposing are not permissible under the, some of the federal requirements, I believe.
And you and I and Dennis and, I can't remember who else, but we were there, we heard some of this.
That was from Lindenville.
Yes.
It's Jane and I and Dennis and another, I can't remember who else was there, but we had, we started to be proactive on it.
Oh, well, that was in terms of the requirements to be a driver and with such a shortage, if there were ways that we could make some changes administratively. And I think DMV was looking at that, but some of the things that Dennis had identified weren't possible simply because of the federal regulations.
Federal regs.
Yeah.
That's
So-
what we gotta get.
Well, that's why we're here.
Yeah.
But the larger issue around the safety and school bus safety and students is something, they had some compelling testimony in terms of driving up on the sidewalk, you know, et cetera. So it was pretty incredible how some drivers were putting kids at risk.
We had a state trooper drive on the sidewalk of the high school. He went by 4 school buses with their lights on, drove up the sidewalk when children were walking out of the school.
I called the commissioner.
Well, I tried to drag him out of his window, but he wouldn't roll it down.
So again, anything you can do to help, obviously, you know,
Well,
we need drivers,
get
you
some
know,
DMV or someone that we can come over and let us know how soon we can.
And
get
I know
I think the biggest issue is the clinic. If we could do that in-house, like do it monthly, where we do an hour every
Yeah.
month over the course of the year, so at the end of the year, they have their 8 hours. I mean,
Or,
that would definitely help speed.
or it says in relicensing and real estate, you know, they either have a generic course that you can go on and take, and it's a preset for a certain amount of time, or have somebody online that can teach the course.
And you require realtors to drive school buses.
Yeah, I think we need more courses.
Well, this meeting's over.
a new driver, we have some 10 hours.
We need about an hour a day for realtors.
Well, Brent's a realtor, so.
Yeah.
You can do what you're doing, Brent.
Additional 8 hours per month in-house before I start.
Right.
I mean, we could be done in 2 days and have them
Yeah.
on the road, getting ready to get their license.
Yeah, it seems like.
Would anybody like to be notified when we get DMV over here?
I was gonna say, why don't you notify
I know,
Brent,
Just check
if he
with
has the
Brent.
contact,
you have, right.
and then Brent can notify me.
I put Brent in touch with Mike, so.
And then Brent can be in touch with me on that.
And I can tell you that the Committee on Education has looked at this as well. They're concerned about the lack of school bus drivers, so they're willing to support us.
Oh, I would imagine.
Hear this part of it.
It's a huge,
But we don't have a bill, so.
no, we're just having a minute.
No, I was just wondering in terms of if
Well, we-
something needed to be.
We can add it to the T-bill.
We'll find out from DMV
I suppose you
what's,
could
how to
put
proceed.
in the budget.
Yeah.
With everything.
And the only other thing I have to offer, and it doesn't have to do with school buses, but make headlights mandatory,
That they always be on, I mean.
always. I have a 2006 vehicle, and when I turn the key off, the lights go on. You don't have to worry about the battery.
Yeah, me too, yeah.
And we drive, as drivers, all of us, at different times of the day, and I don't know, you know, like when it's snowing out and
I
it's
love
5 o'clock in the morning and there's a white car without their lights on coming up the road, you don't see them. If they had your lights on, you would see them.
That's a good idea. That is, that's very helpful. to
I
have
don't
lights
know
on.
why that hasn't been.
Canada does, but I don't know if any state does it.
I don't know, I've never heard of it. I just like it. All the new cars.
I mean, I was listening to some of the other,
Yeah.
you know, about the car registrations and so forth. I said, I think lights are more important.
Usually at dusk or early morning.
Correct, and
And
that's when
evening.
we drive
Yeah.
And evening.
at night.
Because you get people that say, "Oh, I can see, and they come up the road, you know, in the evening on a black road with a black vehicle, and you might see them when they're right there, but you don't see them coming. Thank you very much for your
Thank you.
comments.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Russ, nice.
Thank you, Ken, very nice. Thanks for coming in. Thank you very much.
Continue.
Yeah, that's Mike over there.
Come over.
What's that?
We want to come over now.
No, because we're on DMV, that's what I want here.
Are you on it? Do you have a-
Are you talking about the amendment?
Amendment? Oh, yeah, I don't like
Oh,
that.
that's
Sounded
the
white.
way it- Oh, that.
What were you talking about, Anthea?
Is that ready?
The amendment?
We had her scheduled to come over and do a.
Oh, review of the T-bill.
Oh, I don't think at 11:30 you wanna.
No, I don't think it's too late.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day. Drive home safe.
Much of it's money, I would think, also.
Bruce.
Maybe that's why Michelle is there. You weren't here for the school bus.
Michelle. I was here to listen to Anthea. Or do you want to?
I was like, wow, that didn't. Michelle, there's the school bus.
What was she coming in for?
This, the T-bill.
Oh.
Review of the T-bill.
It's not even on here, you know, state, oh, I see, yeah, 11:15, that was.
Has there done a ways and means?
It's coming up in Ways and Means today.